Roger once again, Mud Fossil University, with a fabulous addition to the light research and electronic research. Now, this is Inventor 3. Nice guy. Communicated to him, told him I was going to do a video on his excellent experiment. Now, what he has here is a block of aluminum. He has a coil of resistive copper wire that creates a magnetic field. They use them in motors and all that business. And the more windings you have, the stronger the field. And he's got a bottle of water here that this is going to, he's going to levitate this. Now, it's going to float around this water, and it may have something to do with the water that keeps it away from the water, because water is a highly polar molecule. So here's what he's going to do. He's got 120 volts. Just the same thing comes out of your wall. 120 volts AC. Alternating current, flips back and forth 60 times a second. And that is what energizes this. So it goes, it's continuously going back and forth, which energizes the electrons, boom, boom, boom. And what it does, it's going to create a cloud of electrons around this. Now, the aluminum already has a cloud of electrons. Well, they both have a cloud of electrons, but they just normally mix together because they're not energized. Well, this one, when it becomes energized, it says, hey, I'm going to push away from this guy's electrons because we got too many in here already. We got too many. You're pushing all these electrons into us. We can't take them. So we got to get away from this guy's electrons, and it'll jump right up into space, and it'll be just like a pillow sitting on top of another pillow. Very, very interesting. Okay, here it goes. And nice job he did here. And this is a Lenz law. Here it goes. Now watch.
And here we go. 3, 2, 1.
All right, you see that? And it still weighs exactly 10 pounds.
You can see it's still at 10 pounds.
All right, now look at how interesting this is. This is sitting here rocking, and the water, I believe, which H2O, is extremely polar. It has what they call, well, it's just polar, let me put it that way. They're like little bar magnets, H2O, because one end has much more positive than the other as the hydrogens give up their electrons, so, all right, to the oxygen. Now, this thing's just going to float exactly that distance away. And why is it exactly that distance? It's because of the weight of this pushing on a pillow, just like you took a bowling ball and put it on top of a certain type of bag of air. It's exactly identical. And it would just sit on there, and then it might wobble around a little bit like this. Now, what's happening around this coil is, as the electricity goes back and forth, it's pushing electrons out all over the place. Because there's, and I will show the magnetic field of what they look like when they're exiting here. They turn into a balloon. All right, so the premise of this whole thing was, why did this thing not gain weight? Why did this, it's at 10 pounds. Let's go back through it again. All right, let's see. So here he goes.
AC here.
Now watch. 5 pounds, 3 and 2, something like that, or 3 and 2.
You see everything here? I'm going to plug this in. Make sure we got a good shot of the whole weight and the whole setup there.
Right, so it's going to be showing 10 pounds
10
down
pounds.
here.
Here we
See
go.
right there,
3,
10 pounds.
2, 1.
Still 10 pounds.
And you can see it's still at 10 pounds.
All right. Excellent job. Obviously, it's just like sitting on top of this, only it's sitting on that guy's electrons. Because they have aluminum and copper have an excess of electrons in their structure. So they conduct electricity very easily when you force some extra electrons in. All right, so now, in looking at this, now I'm going to show you how my little drawing, it's a spectacular little drawing. But in addition to this, I will show you something that I think we may be able to make a motor that would be extremely efficient using these kind of principles. Because what happens is when you collapse this, it gives off just as much and sometimes more than what you're putting into it. As the field builds, it restricts the flow, and as it builds up, and then when you shut off the flow, poof, it shoots back, because now it's got like a big ball of air there, and then it shoots back. And I'll show you what they look like as they come through the air. They turn into a literal ball of electrons, and the electrons are the static type electricity that's in the air in moisture molecules primarily. All right, here's my brief but spectacular drawing. This is aluminum. You saw what I showed you just a minute ago. There's the guy's aluminum, and it just naturally has a cloud of electrons that surround it. And everybody else just sits on top of there, and they mingle, the electrons mingle, because every single thing there is coated with electrons. There are no positive particles that are on the outside of anything. All right, remember that. Inside is the nucleus where your positive is, and every single thing there is surrounded by negatives. Just the nature of matter. And those negatives want to try to find positives, which really is Earth. Earth is a positive, attractive source. And it attracts anything with electrons. And anything with electrons means every other material in the universe. Once you have complete matter, it attracts every other type of matter, because every other type of matter contains electrons. And the electrons are what floods the Earth from the sun, and they are electrons in space as they travel and transit from the sun to anything that they interact with. And they are unseen, they are dark, and I would assume they're going to call that dark energy and dark matter in transit, until it collides and bounces off and shakes matter that it collides with, and that is called heat, as it vibrates and shakes, friction. And it is also called light, as it bounces off and re-radiates. That's the nature of electrons and electricity. And that's why when they energize this and it pops up with all these electrons, they levitate right off to an exact distance, because this is going to give off a certain exact distance of a pillow. And I'll show you, because I have pictures of this. All right, this is not in dispute. When electricity flows in this direction, a magnetic field circulates that flow, and the magnetic field twists in this direction. It is called the right-hand rule, which means if the electricity is going that way, the current flows around in this direction. And that is fully understood. Nobody can argue with that. Now, because it's shown with magnetic particles and all this stuff. You can see it on little iron filings. However, they have never seen this in the actual air before. And now we accelerated light and caused that light to create and display itself as the particles that surround the charged particle as it spins through space. My contention is, and I will show you this in one moment, is that the particles that flow through this wire are identical to what I will say is the white filaments that flow from our accelerator out like this, and we see the field follow the particle. And here it is. Just before we get to the particles, to the fields, this is light coming from a red laser. It's breaking through the atmosphere and then it hits our accelerator and rapidly turns into chaos as the particles crush into each other's regions. As they come out, they are brilliant and create huge radiation of magnetic fields around it, and then they step down, and these are the filaments that I'm talking about that create the pillows. All right, this is looking into the Venturi, and these are the tiny little filaments, and they end up at these particles, or the particle is in the center, and this is the field that surrounds them, exactly like I showed you in that wire coming down. So this is the particle coming, and it's headed by a field. They call this the Higgs particle, and it comes from Cherenkov radiation and a neutrino, electron neutrino, accelerated and hits a slower medium, which we just did. It turns into white, extreme high frequency, high energetic Cherenkov radiation, and then it starts to step down back into its reconfigured red disks. And in the meantime, it displays itself as it crashes through this particular medium. And these little tiny dots are polarized ether particles, which do exist and have known to be existed and have been discounted by the modern scientists. They are existing and they are in the atmosphere, and there is nobody that can discount that now. This tiny particle is a negative particle, and as it spins through the space, well, actually, it's just little tiny twists through space, and I'll show you that in a minute, because we've found that too. And as it does that, it creates this field surrounding that particle. And those are the polarized little dots. And that is the reason that coil of wire stood away from the aluminum plate by an exact distance, because it was pillowed. It was exactly a certain distance away, and that is a product of the speed and the frequency of the electricity spinning back and forth through that wire, and how many electrons it pushes away from itself. And how far they are pushed away is exactly an equation. 60 cycles, 120 volts, it's going to be 1.2 inches away, whatever it is. And so many coils of windings. It's an exact, that's a beam counters can figure that out. It's really not a big thing. But this is the proof of it. This is the seeing. This is the pudding. And another undeniable result coming through the accelerator here. You can see the particle is drifting to the left. That means it is spinning to the right, which is the right-hand rule. And as it's coming, it is compressing, as they all are. This one here is high energy compared to the rest of them. This appears to be the actual particles. As it comes out of the accelerator, it's completely in everybody else's fields, and they're crushing each other and into highly excited, actually plasma, electronic plasma. And as it comes out, they start to step down, and that's what they look like at first: white, black, white. Then they turn into this, which looks like that old atomic symbol from the 50s, and then they turn into black, white, black. It goes from an inverted Oreo to a regular Oreo, and this in the middle. And that's all I can tell you. It does that. It's like a wagon wheel stepping down or something, that type of an effect. But it's obviously high accelerated, powerful particles here stepping down to their normal. And these are the the disc strobes, let's call it that. All right, if you think a magnet or the earth cannot be positive and negative in the manner that I'm talking about, which means an extreme positive pull but an excessive negative, which keeps additional negatives at a quantum distance. Now watch this and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. All right, here it goes. This is, again, as I see, there it goes. There's your quantum distance. Now, that will stay attached exactly to that spot strongly. See, I'm showing before. This is my other hand. See, I got two right hands. Now, so when he shakes this, it's going to wobble around like this. That's heat. When he shakes it hard enough, it's going to go flying off, and that is light. And that's all it is. And the faster the particle comes in, the more spin as it comes in and hits this, that means more frequency. More frequency means what? More angular momentum. More angular momentum means what? More impact. More impact means what? More power. More power means what? More vibration. More vibration means what? More heat. More heat means what? More damage. And of course, you're going to go all the way up to, the highest end of frequencies, which will drive that thing into insanity. All right, but here he goes. Well, I'm having a long talk. All right, so there you go. He's shaking it around, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it. Boom, boom. It won't even leave. There it goes. Now that was light. All right, so that shows that what's going to happen is that is going to stay at a certain distance, and as it gets flooded with more electrons, they're going to bounce in and out, bounce, push, get out of my way, get out of my way, you get out of my way, and before long, one of them's going to go flying. And in the meantime, you're heating things up. All right, so that's how it works. All right, I showed you my particles and all that business. Now, I'm saying that there are no neutrons. They missed everything. What happens is in the core of the nucleus, it is completely flooded with electrons until it cannot accept anymore. Then it holds the additional ones that still want to get inside at a quantum distance, and they stack up until they complete those pillow-looking things. Now, this is what happens, and this is why I say this. This is an atomic bomb. When it goes off, they don't blow up in a big balloon like this. They go straight up into the air. And why do they do that, Roger? Well, the reason they do it, Roger, is because the atomic bomb particles in there are extremely dense matter with extreme amounts of electrons, and they thought that there was neutrons, but those neutrons are not neutrons, those are more electrons. So what happens when they force everything together in a ball? They take all that matter, which is nothing but electrons and some protons, and there's a ton of extra electrons that they never thought about before. They are there. When they force everything together, everybody is pushing each other apart and saying, you got to get the hell away from me, electron, because I don't want you here. All of the electrons will be forced out instantaneously. And that is the extremely brilliant light. That is what causes all the damage inside the organs and the tissues is from so extreme radiation. Now, so they're not nuclear particles whatsoever. Now, as that, there might be a few nuclear particles, so I'm not, protons. Well, there's going to be protons, obviously, but the bulk of everything that will shoot out is going to be negative. Now, what's that going to leave? A positive core. What's the positive core going to do? It's going to go straight up in the air because it is pushed from the Earth because the Earth pulls negatives. You understand? It pulls negatives. There's no negatives left in that chunk. Zip, goes straight up in there. Now you watch. And if you can come up with a different conclusion to this, I'd like to know your thinking. All right? So let's watch this. Here goes. And I'll explain as it goes. First, there goes the flash. Those are all your electrons gone. Now what happens? And this vaporizes everything that's in the air because of those electrons, exciting them identical to what I did with the light acceleration. Now, that goes straight up in the air. It's not going out like this, like a big balloon. It's going straight up in the air, and it is causing this mushroom crowd to pull itself back in, and everything from the ground is trying to be pulled back up because it's a positive, and it's trying to pull in all the negatives it can get to get back to normal. All right, this is Mud Fossil University right up here, and we're growing quick. And this is the one you want to look at. Of course, you want to look at them all. There's hundreds of videos up here. But the light research falls into this. I'll shut that off. Annoying guy's voice there. Hold on a second now. This goes in about, I got to be honest with you. I sent this off to all the different universities. And all the experts that were talking about looking for Higgs bosons, I never got any response. Anyway, you can go up there and look. I was just showing what I sent to them. As a matter of fact, I showed the email and everything. I remember this now. Hello, my friend. I have a series of photos. Okay, that's go to Mud Fossil University. Find out what reality is. There's the blue picture. There's chaos above the accelerator. That's a normal light wave. That's an accelerated light wave. That's the way light spins as it goes forward. Those are the pillows and the Higgs boson fields that I showed. And I'd love to get some response from all these experts, but they never, ever, ever have responded about anything that I've ever contacted any of them about. Because they really have no answers. That's my opinion. And they're hiding as far as I'm concerned.